I can.
Yep.
I cannot hear it. Oh, there. Okay, I can. Mark, can you try talking again? I can't hear you. Can anyone else hear him?
No.
Okay.
Can't hear him.
Glad it was just me. I was like, oh no, like why isn't my audio working? Okay, great. No, can't hear you.
Did this work now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Evidently, there's two different microphones on my system and for some reason got picked up. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, thanks for pointing that out. Because I was talking for like 2 minutes, not realizing anyone had anything. So as a reminder, please sign in to the, well, first welcome everyone. Please sign in to the attendance list. I'll repaste it in the chat for anyone who's joined recently. And a reminder that by joining here, we're agreeing to abide by the SLSA framework's code of conduct. I only have one quick agenda item around like the main use cases. I haven't made any progress on the 1.0 spec this week. I was busy with other things. Does anyone else have any topics to discuss?
Yeah, I actually, this is Marcella here. I actually wanted to talk a little bit about maybe roadmap and sort of timeline of, yeah, just when we expect to have a draft ready versus more, maybe it's too early, but just add that to the agenda if possible. I wasn't sure where to add it.
Sounds good. Anything else for the agenda today?
I think I just really wanted to clarify whether or if we were thinking about doing a triage on the open issues on the spec to see whether there was anything that we wanted to address left for 1.0.
Yeah, I think that'll probably be a good use of time. I think that'll be good. Any other topics? Okay, so the first topic I wanted to just briefly ask about was we currently have SLSA/use cases. I'll link to it in the meeting notes and I'll paste it here for convenience in the chat. And we call out 3 main use cases of first party where you're just using SLSA just as a guideline. No one is verifying that you're doing it. You're just doing it for your own reasons. Then we have, and so you can kind of take it or leave it as you want. Then we have open source and where you are reducing risk from consuming open source. And then we have vendors where you're reducing risk from some third-party vendor, usually closed source. The reason why, right now we just have that separate page and we kind of mention it during conversations, but it's not really part of the spec. I was wondering if anyone had thoughts on kind of threading that through the spec more directly, because in some cases we have kind of divergence between what works in open source and what works in closed source. If not, that's fine. I was just figured I'd raise it, Michael.
Yeah, I think I agree with you that it should be a little bit more highlighted, either directly in the spec or somehow threaded through there, because it seems to be a fairly consistent problem, which is like exactly where what use cases meet what things, and are there certain requirements that are really only applicable to the open source use case versus the vendor one versus internal. And in many ways, I think it's also, I think, a little unclear to folks on how they're supposed to, because I think to take a step back, I know one of the big things is also from where the use cases are split up between stuff like a build service provider versus the person who is running a build, and things like that are just, I think, need to be made a little bit more clear.
Oh yeah, definitely agreed on the splitting that part out on like the audience of like, here's what the implementer needs to do with these various systems, and here's what the users need to do. Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay. That's fine. When we're doing the spec, we could just maybe think about this as a possibility for calling out. So Marcella, on the roadmap, you're talking about like further down the line?
Yeah, just, I mean, some of this, and thanks for putting it in the agenda. Some of this, I guess, line of questioning is coming also just like internally from my end, is just to get an idea of sort of what the expectation is for when we might have a draft of 1.0 ready to, yeah, start looking at working with. And yeah, just kind of in general, I looked around the GitHub issues, and I think even the 1.0 milestone doesn't have a date on it quite yet. So that's kind of just why I was bringing this up, is now that the spec is starting to crystallize a little bit more, yeah, if we can maybe align on sort of a few, I'm not saying we need to sort of decide the entire roadmap, but just sort of maybe start to, yeah, just decide on certain milestones on, even for the draft maybe, or yeah.
Yeah, so like milestones like within the draft instead of just like the whole thing is complete.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So in terms of milestones, I think like one would be maybe breaking it up so that for like reorg the site so that we can develop 1.0, because like a, for example, 1.0 branch, I think would be a first step to give us a common place to do that, and I can try to do that next week maybe. So we at least have some place to commit to. There's going to be actual development work, which will have different pieces in it. And then we will be kind of review and approval process, or like ratification process. So like on the tail end, we figure that would take how many weeks do you think? Like once we have a draft, we'll probably want to wait several weeks before we stamp it as official. like maybe 4 weeks. So development work on the draft itself, I would imagine. Well, I guess one question is like, can we split it up somehow? Like to have more than one more person working on it. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to agree with you. And I'm absolutely able to take on a section if that's what's needed.
Yeah, so I think like figuring out how we can do like splitting that up and like the high level of like what changes we want to make, I think is, I guess we have like high level changes to the spec, to like reorganizing stuff, and then there's wording changes. And those are, I think, pretty orthogonal. Like a lot of the issues on the issue tracker are issues with particular items. And that probably is going to just be moved over in bulk. So maybe we could split it up that way of like, so like in branch for 1.0, similar. I guess I could present the notes so we could actually see what I'm talking about. Zoom in a little bit. So like the high level reorgs. First also for rename levels, etc. And then low level changes from the issue tracker. I think these two probably could happen in parallel. Oops, sorry, wrong button. I would guess maybe we shoot to have a draft in mid-October, realistically speaking, initial draft. And then if we figure there's going to be a 4-week-long review process, that's maybe mid-November. Michael?
Yeah, no, that sounds good. And I think we should, regardless, I think what we should do is not have a full-blown announcement, but at least talk about, you know, for the folks who are going to be there at KubeCon, make sure that folks are, hey, aware, like, you know, SLSA is prepping for 1.0, there's a draft out, and so that folks like know that the stuff is coming down the line.
When is that?
KubeCon is what, the 23rd to the, well, it's, yeah, so it's 24th to the 28th. I think Monday and Tuesday
November?
are co-located events of October.
October.
Yeah. So just so that folks know, like, hey, if you've heard of this SLSA thing and you're looking at it and you have very strong opinions about what's coming down the line, you should make sure that you express them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I mean, considering how the pace of this might be optimistic, but I think it's probably good to shoot for that as a goal. And then if things get pushed back or delayed, I think we really want to have this by end of year. I think there's a strong desire by everyone to have like this finalized by the end of the year. And so if we work on getting the draft done within the next month, and then, you know, iteration and approval and everything within the following month. That sounds good. Any thoughts? Okay. Should we move on to triaging open issues?
Yeah, I wondered if there's kind of some offline process we could take where we could kind of individually comb the issues and advocate for ones that we would like to get into the 1.0 spec, and then maybe circle back in a week's time or so and see whether, and then actually go through, because there's like 125 open issues here. It's you know.
Yeah, I wish that we had like some sort of hierarchy in GitHub. Also, I don't know if it's possible, like how to grant permissions, because I don't think everyone here can tag.
No, we can.
You
No,
know?
I don't. Regular folk can add labels.
That's really annoying. Yeah, 125 is a lot. Or if we could at least like bucket them into, you know, definitely not, definitely yes, and maybe as a first pass. Maybe we could just like right here, just go quickly through. There's probably a lot we could look just from the title. It's also a requirement for automation. I'm guessing is in, without knowing what it is in the maybe category. Or like requires further consideration at least. Diagrams show how the stations are generated. Mike filed that one. Do you think it's for the 1.0 spec or no?
So I do think I'm thinking about it holistically of what we should make sure is available by 1.0. I think, yes, we need to have some of that for 1.0. And just to kind of, I don't want to harp on it too much, but one of the things that kind of came out was like, when we go to 1.0, we want to make sure that we have some reasonable documentation on stuff like patterns and how the tool should be used, and or even implemented, like not implemented, sorry, how tools should be designed, right? So that with the spec in mind, so that folks sort of are hitting the spirit of the law as well as the letter of the law. Because I think there's been some confusion on some of the tools and some of the ways that people have been sort of, let's say, generating SLSA attestations where they're like, oh, I'm SLSA compliant. And it's like, not really. So I think that we just need to make sure that that is available for 1.0.
All right, sounds good. This one, I don't even remember what that one was. Okay, I'm just going to mark this one as a maybe in this first pass. What do you think about using like a tag for like maybe 1.0, and we could use this milestone for things that have been decided? Actually, I should undo any ones that I already did because we didn't do that in this group, so I don't want to unilaterally say that. So maybe just two tags, one for maybe 1.0 and one for definitely. And then if it's missing the definitely tag, that's effectively something that we haven't decided yet, and we can either remove the tag or otherwise. So let's probably generate that definitely not. Provenance 1.0, no. I'm going to call the provenance ones out of scope just because, just to limit scope here. SLSA logo icon, no. Parameters required for
Level 4 thing anyway, so probably don't need to address it for.
Yeah, that sounds good. We'll defer that one. Positioning, dependency dashboard. I don't even know what that is. Mapping between provenance. That is, I would say yes. GitHub security procedure. Moving optional requirements for a verifiable version. Oh, I agreed to discuss that one. I think like this one, I think will probably be like, this will be a future level 4 thing. So the decision will be, but I want to discuss it with the group first. Clarify province every step of the pipeline. Probably that might need guidance in the spec on like what has to go in the provenance. Getting started page. No. No. Well, I'm gonna say no for now. Are my things still checked? Please tell me they're still checked. Oh, damn it.
Oh no.
Gmail does not work like that. Okay, which ones did I check?
I was so worried about that before you clicked next.
Yeah, I didn't think. Okay, and so labels, you gotta be kidding me. Oh no, this is okay, thank God. Okay, so that one worked. So anyone else seeing this, how there's like nothing here?
Yeah, I wondered, do you not have the ability to add labels?
I for sure do.
Hmm.
Looks like none of these things are being populated right now. See, like even the actions.
Yeah.
Oh, that's irritating. All right, guess what? I'll do that in another tab. Leave that tab open. And I'll share this other tab. Oh, this one works now. All right. Mitigation for compromised package repo threat. That sounds out of scope. Well, we'll triage it. Entry point. Yes. Yeah. Reproducibility.
Level 4.
Yeah. I could do another pass and tag them. That one, I feel like it's just a documentation thing, so I'm going to say no. Congress is SLSA. I think it's like a positioning thing. Framework self-assessed. Build service. I'd say yes.
Excuse me, the issue about the SLSA level self-assessed, I mean, it raises the question, I mean, does the spec touch on, how you actually use the spec? I think this is relevant.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sorry. Granular for build. We might want to like bucket these as like things that aren't necessary for the 1.0, but that we do want to do quickly, just for prioritization reasons. But at least if we could bucket them now, so we don't have to go through 125. New threat type ideas, I don't think that's required. Soft load type, no. I'll put that on to resolve. That's level 4. I'll label what? You can't create a new label from here? Are you kidding me?
This is your job interview as a GitHub admin.
All right. Just added. Come on. Oh, be kidding me. I created a label and another thing. This is horrible. All right. I'll do the same thing I did before. Stop sharing. Share the new tab. Painful. Yes, that's level 3. Providence. That sounds like Providence. No. Yes. I think that's out. Salsa 4, salsa 4. I'd say out of scope, out. Pollution discovery. Yes, I'd say no. Yes. I think that's out of scope since we're separating source. Distribution, I think this one is in scope. By the way, I just did that, so let me label this.
Yeah, I was going to say the community specification license, you've done that, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna.
The issue
I'll
can be closed. All right.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for doing that.
Sure. Okay, so all right, that page is good. And by the way, obviously, shout out if you see anything that you disagree with. Define work case rule. Review list merges. A 2-person review out of scope. Metagroup out of scope. Oh, breakdown to lower levels. I'll include it. Build service secrets. Yes. Okay. Can't. Oh, is that Providence thing? I think that's out of scope. It's also for website, higher levels. Should we include this one for discussion? I think it's a question of, should we include something about signing at lower levels? I'll put it on to discuss. Platform versus project configuration. Sounds like yes. Canvas requirement. Yes. One second. I'll be right back. 1 second. Associated with GitHub, no. Does anyone know what this one is? Oh, this one's about the versioning. So I'm going to include it because we talk about versioning. Tracking changes, I think, is in scope. Aspect. I think that's out of scope for 1.0. I mean, I think we should do it, but I don't think it's a hard blocker. That spec. Is this also, sorry, is this level 4? Because it's about pinning. I think that's a level 4 thing. Common requirements, that's problems issues from attestation repo. I think that's part of the spec. Defined source, yes. Label, maybe 1.0. All right. I think this is all around. This is, I think, maybe in the spec because it's kind of like the high level idea of how the thing works. So I'll include those to consider. Should this be part of the spec? Suggestion had to do PKI, or just call that out of scope.
Yeah, I think that's more guidance around implementing the spec rather than something we should mandate in the spec itself.
Okay. Parent mod program. I think that's for SLSA 4, SLSA 4, SLSA 4, ephemeral persistent artifacts. I think that's a terminology thing, so we should include for now. Walkthrough's outdated. Yeah, that one. Gosh, we have a lot of issues we need to just clean up and fix. SLSA 4 coverage. Where's this even? That's way out of scope. This, I think, is in scope. This one we just talked about. I think this one's in scope as well. I think this is out of scope. Source 4 out of scope. Yes. I think that just based on the previous comment, I think out of scope because there's recommendations on how to implement. I think that's out of scope. Out of scope. Well, effectively we're doing this, so I'm going to check it. Okay, so I at least have a first pass other than these other two tab pages. Oh, here we go. this working now? Let me stop presenting. Let me see if I can get these other 2 pages done. If I reload, this doesn't work. No. Okay, so now we have this maybe 1.0 label. Paste it in the chat here and in the notes. Meeting notes. What would be a good way to go through these and kind of like triage your vote?
Did you say triage our vote?
Yeah, like would it be helpful for folks to say like, oh, this shouldn't or should? I think if anyone wants to go through and like tag them, just let me know and I could just grant you permissions in the GitHub org or in the repo. I think you just have to be marked as a contributor or something like that. So if anyone's willing to do that to clean up these labels.
The last time I tried to do something in GitHub, it was not pretty, so I'm...
Yeah.
I think that's a good kind of starting list for us to pull down. I wonder whether it's worth us kind of taking the time to kind of wander through them and comment on them, and then maybe discuss those that are contentious next week. I mean, there's the question of whether or not we want to resolve them, and then there's a resolution.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's also the prioritization between them, you know, because if we don't have time to address all of them, which one should we do? I wish we had a way to add like metadata here. I guess what I could do is just extract these all to a spreadsheet. And then we could just like tag stuff there. You could like sort it that way and kind of sort by priority or something. Would that be valuable? I don't know. I guess, yeah, as a first pass, let me add this one page that I'm missing for the labels I couldn't get working. And then if you could comment on them, if you think like either they should be in 1.0 or they should not be in 1.0 or something about the resolution, I think that would probably be valuable. And then we can come up with like a perspective list for next week and then just say, does this look good? Does everyone agree with like, this is the cut that we're making? I'll use the milestone as the potential cut. I'll just mark everything. If it sounds good to you all, I could go through and just mark everything that I think is likely to make the cut in there. And if you could go through that right now, the milestone here, let me paste this in here. If you could go through and just review what's already in there to see if there's anything you disagree with, and then we could pull that out. That's probably more efficient than like voting on every single one. And if you have thoughts on like how to actually resolve any of them, that would be good too. I think in the meantime, before we you know, actually have the new branch and like whatever refactoring we need in like the markdown format. I think a lot of the work here is really going to be about wording and content. And so if we actually, how about this for a process? Why don't we create a branch that where we just edit the spec in place, even though it's under the 0.1 directory, and then we could review wording changes there, and then the refactor into like separating by use case or whatever we could do separately, but that will hopefully unblock things and allow us to make independent progress on most of these issues, which were designed with the current format in mind. Does that make sense, first of all?
That makes sense.
So basically, go ahead, Aaron.
That does make sense. Just to, get some work done on it, even though technically, like, sure, we're not going to be editing the current spec, and merging that in, but it's a good place to work, right?
Yeah, and I feel like we could, we could either do that through a branch or Google Docs. I would be inclined to do the branch. There's drawbacks to each one. You have to edit and mark down, and it might not be easy to merge. The other is like a kind of more closed system, and the history is harder to see. I'd be inclined to do the branch, and then we actually will make commits on that branch and do pull requests, but to the branch instead of to main. And it just won't show up until it's live, until we finally merge it to main.
Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to say, actually, another idea could be, to have like two branches, like one for high priority things, and maybe the second one for low priority things. I guess that in some cases, like for rewarding of phrases of sentences, maybe it's gonna be, maybe you can have like some difficulties while merging into the same branch, while if you keep two priority levels, maybe it's even easier. I don't know, just a proposal.
But would the review process be the same on both?
Yeah, for the review process is definitely the same. But then maybe, when it's about, so I guess that at some point we'll assign some priorities to the issues that we have to fix and to the things that we want to integrate. So my idea was, okay, even though the review process is the same, then we can like dedicate some two separated branches, one for high priority tasks and one for low priority tasks.
If you want to work on the main branch and not make that visible to everybody the first time they come, you can create a new branch and make that the default branch for the repo, and that's what people will see when they get to the repo. Then you can work on the main branch.
Okay, yeah, that can be a solution. Maybe I was not meaning actually this, but it's okay.
I guess another option is right now that we just have separate directories per version. We could just create another directory on the main branch as one pull request and edit there. Maybe that's the most straightforward thing. And then just clean it up later.
Yeah, maybe actually, yes.
With just some sort of note, like warning that like this is some sort of banner or something like this is draft, it's not the final version.
Yeah, the only downside I know of that is you cannot, if you make changes, you want to peek for the other version, that doesn't work. But otherwise, yes, that's the most straightforward. You cannot cherry pick, right? Changes you've made that you want to apply to the previous version. That's not going to work because they're completely different directories. But otherwise, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to actually refactor the implementation so we could just develop per branch instead of having per directory, and then it would allow that. But that's that's orthogonal to this. So, all right. So let's. Any other thoughts on that? I'm leaning towards that. Just create another directory for now with a warning that it's draft, and all of the edits that we have now. They'll go through the same process we've done before. You merge it into main just on the 1.0 directory. And then in terms of the refactoring stuff, that part, like the major structural changes can occur on a branch, but the kind of one-off pull requests around wording and clarifications can just happen in the directory, and then we'll just merge it.
Yeah, I think the only other thing, the comment I have is, or question is are we covering everything? I mean, should we treat the issues list as our kind of list of work items? Have we got anything that we're currently considering working on or actually working on that's not currently tracked in an issue?
The only thing I'm aware of is the stuff that was in the doc, which I can make an issue for. So where's the notes? So is issue tracker complete? I think if there's anything that you know of that should be in there, file an issue. Again, that one page of issues I still haven't, there's 10 issues that I haven't moved over to that tag yet because I have to figure out how to do it without losing all my progress again. And then there's the add non-missing ones. Mark will add ones for the doc, the proposal doc. Going to implement. I'm trying to write up notes real quick.
Mark, you're muted. I don't know if you're meaning to be muted right now.
Having so many Zoom problems today. When you share a tab, it mutes your microphone because it tries to play the audio from that tab. So there's like, if you go back to the Zoom page on the your screen sharing, in order to unmute yourself, you have to have it look like a mute. It's like awkward UX. So thanks for keep telling me that. So everyone go through the and comment. So everyone go through those. I'll create the 1.0 directory. Everyone, unless anyone else wants to create the 1.0 directory, I already have a draft on like how we can add a banner to the site to say it's draft. To implement use actually no, I just said that here. I'll take the issue of like doing the major refactoring from the proposal. If anyone wants to work with me on that, let me know. I think that's the type of thing where it's like probably in a big group like this, it's not very useful, but like 1 or 2 or 3 people kind of discussing and iterating is probably useful. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. And so I'll try to do the directory thing like ASAP. That way we have a place to actually start sending pull requests for the 1.0. Does that sound okay?
Yep.
Okie doke. Any other things to say before we leave?
Thanks for running this, Mark. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thanks for everyone's contributions. This is good. All right. So we'll discuss, I guess, online, and I'll see everyone next or at the next meeting or next week. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.